Violence on the streets of Johannesburg and Pretoria has once again thrown sharp focus on the significant challenges in South Africa on social cohesion and integration that remain. Confrontation between foreigners and locals spiraled as foreign nationals were accused of stealing jobs and criminal activity. Failure to successfully integrate immigrants into society can lead to tension and conflict that we vividly saw in the past few weeks and that have a direct impact on the stability at local community and national level. To discuss how locals and society groups can work together with government to promote orderly migration and integration is Mr. Mametlwe Sebei from the People Coalition Against Xenophobia. Good afternoon, Mr. Sebei, and thank you so much for coming through to the SABC News Desk on a Saturday at that.
Good afternoon to you. Yes.
Really distressing scenes playing out over recent weeks in the country. From your line of work on the ground, working with people, what do you think is the cause, the actual cause, behind the spate of violence we're seeing recently?
Well, I mean, it is evident that it is, a deepening crisis, in the economy. And, you just have to look at both the numbers as well, not just in terms of the economic performance, a very sharp downturn that we experience in the economy. But I think the devastation that it entails for many people. Levels of unemployment has skyrocketed. Now we are sitting at 10.2 million people. Situation is getting very worse. I mean, in the first quarter of this year alone, 237,000 jobs were lost. And that means a deepening level of, grinding poverty for many people. And it is that which obviously undermines cohesion, in a situation where also it's not like the social safety nets, social welfare as well. I mean, you look at, housing situation, 2.3 million backlog. Our people are staying in shacks. The situation is not getting any better. Any better. Year in, year out, actually, the housing backlog is growing by over 173,000 houses. So it is that intensifying competition for an increasingly limited resources that is fueling, this crisis on the one hand, but I think also on the other hand, the rising right-wing populism in the world, which is being echoed, domestically by politicians from the mainstream political parties. For the first time in the history of this country, post-1994, we had all the major parties of capitalism, the ANC, DA and others as well, that had a xenophobic program as a cornerstone of their program. And it is that scapegoating, of the migrants for the failures of the system, for the failures of government policies, but also a lack of answers to fundamental problems confronting working class that, is, being reflected. And I think in a most bloodiest fashion we've seen in the past weeks.
I hear you, Mr. Sebei, but such incidents are really not unique to South Africa, and I'm not downplaying it in any way, but it is in reality a global phenomenon. We're not the only country grappling with such a problem, but what is worrying is the spike we're seeing in frequency and the brutality attached to such crimes of such nature, right? How do we ensure really that the policies and programs that we implement designed to facilitate effective and successful migrant integration does not lead to a situation where South African citizens start to feel that they are being disadvantaged, but rather come to understand that migrant integration is part of our broader developmental strategy for now?
Well, what you are missing is that, firstly, in a South African context, the crisis in the economy is really just building on the crisis that has been happening over decades, a crisis of inequality that has created a unique situation, and I think that also is shown by the levels of violent crimes that are built into the very fabric of society. So reality is, of course, ordinary people in the ordinary, course of events do live together very well, and they've been living together. And I do think that it takes, as we have seen in this instance, in these ways, just politicians. And I must say, in these current waves, the police themselves are most immediately and directly responsible for sparking the latest wave, because it was the kind of, no, but I mean, if you remember the incidents in Newtown, Johannesburg, where there was confrontation, and I mean, my work with that community is that it was people revolting against extortion, daily robberies by the police. You just have to go there. People, small traders, by the way, migrants and South Africans, are being daily harassed by the police that are looking for briberies, that are extorting people, and all these sorts of things are ignored when we look at how people reacted and so on. So if government was interested in counterfeit goods, reality is we know where people are buying those goods. Why are they not going there? Why would you allow factories to sell people goods so that you go after hundreds or thousands of small traders when you know where people are buying those goods? None of those people have infrastructure to be importing a lot of those goods into the country.
I want to hear on the point of your work in those communities. What are some of the common complaints that you get from victims, and how many of these cases actually make it to court? What are some of the barriers to effective prosecution or successful prosecution that people experience on the ground?
I can assure you, from both my experience of organizing small traders in the past, but also working at Lawyers for Human Rights, is that day-to-day basis, people come and say, this policeman has taken my stock because I refused to pay, bribery to him. He was extorting me to give him this and that. In actual fact, police, both SAPS and Metro Police in Johannesburg, just simply don't buy things that me and you buy from spaza shops and so on. They just feel entitled. They walk into, a shop, and grab. And they've been coming to our offices. I know our offices, our colleagues within the sector, we have assisted the migrants to lodge complaints countless times. There is simply no recourse because authorities are not interested in dealing with these cases, and we simply don't have capacity ourselves also to be helping them.
I know at this point you're mobilizing. What is your plan? How are you going to structure your response to these series of events going forward?
I think the point to be made is that what this violence and what xenophobia does is that it threatens the very, cohesion, social and political cohesion of the working class, the only force which, when united, is capable of resisting and fighting back on the growing, scourge of violence in society in general, because underlying this violence, the crime that people are talking about, the drug abuse, and all these things and so on, is growing poverty. We need to be united to be able to demand jobs. We need to be united to be able to, demand housing. And all these, services that our people are saying, they are becoming more and more, scarce. So we will not be able to conquer when we are divided. Now, a general, industries, a general, as GUSA, we with our partners as well, we've initiated a campaign. The first meeting we had last week was convened through also Lawyers for Human Rights and COMSA. We called a meeting where we brought, a lot of unionists, community activists, student activists to build the People's Coalition Against Xenophobia. And part of it is that we will be mobilizing for a march on the 14th of September. We want to reclaim our cities, our streets for working class unity. And I think for a progressive solution to the problems of unemployment, of poverty, of crime, of drug abuse, rather than scapegoating them on migrants, we believe the task more than that is to rebuild the workers' movement and community civics, because we need our unity, we need our organizations, we need to be able to struggle to confront these issues, because it's not enough just to be talking about sisterhood, brotherhood, and so, making all those, moral appeals when the situation and the conditions of the masses in this country is growing disparate, and which is a reason that we see exploding in the bloody fashion that we have experienced in the past few weeks.
Mr. Mametlwe Sebei from Lawyers for Human Rights and the People's Coalition Against Xenophobia, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us on the SABC News Desk. Well, time to take a short break. I'll be back with more news after this. Stay with us.